All right, friends, welcome to another week of our online Bible study looking at the Gospel of John. And this week we are in John chapter 14. And right near the beginning of John chapter 14, Jesus says one of the things that is most often quoted from him today. He says in John 14:6, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." You have probably heard that before, and when you've heard it, you've probably heard it just like that. Like just those words. So what we get a chance to look at today is we get a chance to look at the context of those words. And I'm not going to draw a ton of conclusions around it, but instead in the few minutes that we have together, I think it's important just to kind of present it as it is, to see it in its larger context. And then as we go on through this week, we'll be talking more about 14 as a whole. And at the end of the week, I'll wrap it up, and maybe then I'll draw some conclusions around it. Also, so here is how John chapter 14 starts. "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me." Okay, let's remember that chapter 14 is a part of a larger conversation that began in chapter 13. Jesus has washed the disciples' feet. He gives the new commandment. And you'll just have to kind of remember all that. Maybe flip back to 13 to remind yourself of it. And what Jesus is saying here is in response to something that Peter has said. What did Peter say in first in verse 36? He said, "Lord, where are you going?" And he wants to know, where are you going? Because if you go all the way back to verse 32, what did Jesus say? Or 33, he said, "My children, I will be with you only a little while longer. You look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I'll tell you, where I'm going, you cannot come." Then he gives the new commandment. And it's funny, he says, "I'm only going to be here a little bit longer, and where I'm going, you can't come." Then I'm going to tell you the super important thing, this new commandment. Then after he's done, Peter kind of ignores the whole new commandment piece and says, "Let's go back to what you said before. Where are you going?" And then he says, why can't I go? I'll go with you. So Jesus is responding to Peter here. Peter has said, where are you going, Jesus? And Jesus' response is, look, don't let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God and believe also in me. Now, in my Father's house are many rooms. If that weren't so, would I have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may also be where I am. Now, verses 2 and 3 there are very, very difficult to translate. There are lots of different ways that they can be translated. But the major image seems to be that Jesus is saying, hey, don't worry. Like, there is a place for you. And the implications here are definitely around what is happening after Jesus is gone, which is about Jesus' death. Okay. Now, sometimes we overemphasize the idea of the afterlife in Jesus' teaching. We underneath every rock, we're thinking that he's talking about what happens after we die. And I don't think that's the case. Jesus is often talking about life in the here and now. But Jesus is often also talking about, or at times talking about what happens afterwards. And here, I think he's talking about what happens after death. And he's painting this image and saying, look, where I'm going, which he eventually calls paradise, where I'm going, you're going to come also. And there's room for you there. Okay. Then he says, you know the way to the place where I'm going. You know the place to where I'm going. And then Thomas responds, and I mean, I think it's exactly what I would say too. Lord, we don't even know where you're going. You won't tell us where you're going. So how could we possibly know the way? I mean, we're sitting here in Dallas and you're telling us you're going somewhere. We don't know if you're going to Oklahoma or you're going to New Mexico or Louisiana. We don't know where you're going. So if we don't know where you're going, how would we know the way to get there? And he says, okay. Look, you do know. I'm the way. I'm the truth and I'm the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. What we're going to see in just a minute is that Jesus' destination, where he's going, is not a place, but it's a person. He's going to the Father. That's where he's going. And Jesus is saying, come on. And you know the way to the Father. What's the way to the Father? The way to the Father is me. I'm the way to the Father. The destination is not a place. The destination is a person. It's the Father. And the way is not a place. It's a person. It's the Son. We have to remember these metaphors here, that sometimes we think about these things like really literally. And here Jesus is using metaphor to show us a deeper truth, that where he is going is he's going back to be with the Father. In God's, the Father's presence. And we can go there also through him, which has implications for the afterlife, obviously, because we believe that as people who follow Jesus in this life, that we follow him into the next also, but it also has implications for the here and the now, because we want to be people who walk in the way, not just so that we follow the way to get into heaven, but we want to be people who walk in the way now. When we walk in the way now, we also experience God's presence. We experience the Father here. The way is not just a path that we follow into the afterlife. The way is like a way of life. It's like a way that is inside of us. The way is Jesus himself. That as we walk through life with him, it means we walk the way that he walked. We know what he knows and we do what he does. But as we walk in his presence, with his presence around us, that is what leads us to the destination that all of us are ultimately craving. That's the Father. Not just to be in heaven one day, but it's like to be in the presence of God. Now and then. So that's the larger context for all of this. Last verse that we have for today is there in verse 7. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do not know him and have seen him. From now on, you do know him. That's wrong. From now on, you do know him and you've seen him. And how have they known and seen the Father? Because they've known and seen the Son. Much more on that to come. God bless you, friends. Keep on reading, and I'll see you next time.